So I want to open this morning with a beautiful quote from John Lennon. There are two basic motivating forces, he says, fear and love. When we're afraid, we pull back from life. When we're in love, we open up to all that life has to offer with passion, with excitement, and acceptance. Isn't that beautiful? And we can actually feel that, right? We know that's the truth. It's absolutely like Franklin Roosevelt said, the only thing we should fear is fear itself. And that is the absolute truth, because fear is the only thing that prevents us from living a full life. And if we allow that fear to overtake us, it can paralyze us where we are, and we feel stuck. It will prevent us from living our dreams or going after our wants and our desires. As human beings, we fear so many things, and we don't even realize it most of the time. We fear failure, we fear love, loneliness, change, and mostly what we fear is the unknown. Have you had that experience? If those fears are left unattended, they're going to keep us living this very small, very constricted life because we won't try anything new. And as Nathan reminded us in that opening reading, fear is not the natural state of civilized humankind. It isn't. Fear gets us to worry about what might happen. Have you ever done that? Yeah. Whether it's if we speak our truth, if we follow our dreams, if we open our heart, what might happen. What's important to remember, though, is even though we know a lot of things might happen, what we forget is a lot of things won't happen. We forget that part. When you pay close attention to any fear that comes up, you're going to notice that it always tries to control you with that worst case scenario. And here's the truth. Guess whose thoughts are creating that worst case scenario? Right? We get to take that responsibility. In most cases, the fear that we're experiencing is not happening to you. That fear is coming from you, from those thoughts. So the first step in eliminating that unnecessary fear is to evaluate your fears. What is it I'm afraid of? What is it I'm afraid is going to happen? And why am I so afraid? Once you analyze your fears, it's much easier to keep them in check and to stay on top of them. And that way it doesn't allow, you don't allow that fear to hold you back from anything at all. It's also helpful in making it easier for us to decide what fears are necessary and what fears are unreasonable or irrational, masquerading as obstacles in our life. There's this story about a ship. And this ship was sinking rather rapidly in this incredibly raging storm. And the captain happened to realize just how fast that ship was sinking. So he called out, "Does anyone know how to pray?" And so one man stepped forward and he said, "I, Captain, I know how to pray." And the captain said, "Good, you pray while the rest of us are putting life jackets on because we're one short." Now, that was not an unreasonable, irrational fear, okay? How often, though, do we allow fear to keep us from doing what we'd like to do? From trying something new? From realizing our dreams? Or do we have the courage to step outside of our comfort zone and overcome those fears? take that chance, that opportunity to try something new and different. We can certainly overcome our fears, and we can do that by learning to embrace life, by learning to trust life, knowing that life, God's source, universe, has our back, that we cannot fail. And when we do that, when we get to that point, then we are willing to take chances. We're willing to see, to understand that we're simply human. Things aren't always going to turn out like we thought they would, and they will always turn out okay. When we try new things and we step out of our comfort zone just a little bit, as we do that time and time again, we find that we're doing something new. We're creating a new habit, because that's all it is a habit, that fear. The key is believing in yourself and trusting life. It's important for us not to worry about that idea of perfection and how everything has to work out just perfectly as I planned it. It doesn't have to be perfect. We don't have to be perfect in everything we say and everything we do. We need to accept that we are simply human beings, here to have that spiritual experience. This is a journey, and everything doesn't have to be A to Z in perfect order. We want to accept that we learn through trial and error. That's how we learn. That's how we grow. It's like when we were learning to walk, right? Wasn't with children like my grandson, it wasn't how many times he fell down that mattered when he was learning that skill. It was how many times did he get up? How many times did he try again? And as adults, we lose that. Not always, but sometimes we lose that. We come to worry more about the bumps and the bruises than the journey itself, than where we're going, than what we're doing, than what we're experiencing. All that matters in life is that we always do the best of our ability at a certain point in time. All that matters is that we live our life to the fullest possible way we can. And it's true that the only fear really is fear itself. It is certainly better for us to live with mistakes than to live with a life of regret. Our dear friend Unknown said this: "One day your life will flash before your eyes. Make sure it's worth watching." Make sure it's worth watching. I mean, think about that. When you watch it, are you going to say, "Oh, I should have done that," or "I should have been different here"? Do it now. Fear is only a feeling. It's not a fact. And here's the really great news about that. We change our feelings all the time, don't we? So we can change that fear feeling too. Now, I'm willing to go out on a limb here and say that that most of the fear that you experience is a feeling that's inspired by a fearful thought about something that just might happen. I know that's true for me. And since we're free to change our mind, we can change our feelings and in turn change our behavior and our responses, our outlook. We have the power to do that. That is one of our God-given gifts. I found this really great clip from Will Smith that I just had to share with you this morning. So Greg's going to put that on. Everything that you want or desire is on the other side of your fear. I just think that is a beautiful, perfect life lesson. And no one could have told it better. And so we all have that power to free ourselves from the mental prison that fear creates. Many of you know that, I'm careful how I say this, I don't love to fly. And that's exactly what I had to do last week in order to get where I was going rather quickly. And honestly, I felt like Will Smith before he jumped out of the airplane, right? I didn't sleep the night before. I ate crackers for breakfast, settled my stomach, and then reluctantly I boarded that plane. Part of my fear was because flying thousands of miles above the planet is just not natural. Okay? It just isn't. And I can't see where I'm going, and I'm not in control. I mean, there's a lot of fear around that. Another part of my fear, though, was days before I left, I don't know if I read something or I saw something on TV, but they were talking about how the most dangerous part of flying is landing. And oh my God, ain't it awful, right? I had to change planes, so I had to land twice in one day. So that fear was but not to mention days later I was going to fly home and do the same thing again. So that fear was just bubbling up inside of me. And then I remembered something. I remembered that I usually tell people, right, to reduce that fear, to relax, to remain calm, to do some breathing exercises. And I thought, gee, I wonder. So, by the way, it works, okay? That fear truly is only thought. And that's what I really came to realize last weekend. And that thought always did come from within me. It was about what might happen, what could happen, right? But nothing happened. It was actually a really beautiful flight back and forth. I want to share that breathing technique with you that I like to use, that I think is really beneficial if you're in fear, and remember that you're in fear, and remember that you want out of it. It's a technique that's used in yoga, so probably many of you are already familiar with it. So I'm going to invite you and ask you if you'd like to close your eyes and just simply become aware of your in-breath and your out-breath, and feel that flow of air moving through your body. Just be aware of it. Be aware of what it feels like when you're not controlling it, just when it's natural. Now, the exercise we're going to do is simply going to be in your mind. Of course, so experience your breath right now as if you're inhaling in one nostril only. And then feel yourself exhaling in the other nostril. In from one nostril, feeling it, imagining it, out through the other. Then in through the other, and back out through the first. And what is really, really helpful is what we're going to do next is do the counting with that. So you inhale through one nostril, saying silently to yourself, 1. Out through the other, 1. Inhale through the other, 2. Exhale through the other, through the 1, 2. Through the first, 3. Exhale through the second, 3. Inhale through the second, 4. Exhale through the first, 4. And then on the 5 count, you inhale through both nostrils and exhale through both. And then you go on with in 6, out 6. And you do that, and you go as far as you can, counting, and reach as high a number as possible without losing count. And then on each 5, you're doing it with both nostrils. The beauty of this exercise is that when you're counting like that, there's no room for your mind to entertain those worst case scenarios, because you're keeping yourself occupied. And it's relaxing your body, it's relaxing your mind. It's a wonderful, wonderful exercise that brings you to that present moment awareness, to where all is well right now, here in this moment in time. And there's so much clarity and peace and joy in the present moment. And we all know that's all we truly have, is right here and right now. And to truly let go of the past, and to truly let go of those worst case scenario thoughts, and stop fearing the future, is incredibly liberating. Now, we can choose to look at fear in a couple different ways. Our good friend, Mr. Webster, states fear like this: an unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or a threat. However, writer Leanne Kalal has a different take on fear, and she says this: an opportunity for self-discovery and self-growth, a well of untapped personal power and strength, the gateway from wishing and wanting to doing and being. And I certainly prefer her way of looking at fear, because it pushes us out of our comfort zone. It pushes us into growth. Because if we're open to it, we can see where there's fear, there is personal power. Everyone on this planet experiences fear. And what sets successful and happy people apart from everyone else is the ability to act in the face of fear. Be courageous. Turn your fear into your personal power. And as we say yes to life, to live fearlessly, openly, and authentically, as we trust life, we grow, we expand, and we do experience that personal freedom. So thank you so much for being here while I shared this truth as I understand it.